Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Musik Space Podcast, dedicated to exploring the creative minds of some of the most talented and innovative artists in the music industry. And today I am joined by one of the music industry's finest, my good friend, Miss Ashley Marse, and vocalist.
Yeah.
Ashley, how are you doing today?
I'm great.
It's
Thank
good to
you
have
for
you here.
having me.
Yeah, good to have you here. So let's jump right in. Let's talk about your start. How did you start? Like, when did you get interested in music and in singing, and how did that, like, was your family all singers? You know, like a lot of people have those
Right.
families that are singers and stuff like that. How did that work for you?
So for me, yes, my family has always been musically talented.
Mm.
So my aunt played for the church. She played keys and she sang. So as a little girl, I would go to church with my aunt. Loved going to church with my aunt because I got to sing with the choir. And so just, I think from the time I could talk, I love to sing.
Mm.
I sung every song on the radio, even the ones I didn't or I shouldn't have been singing.
Of course.
Um, but yeah, just as a little girl, I would spend hours, maybe like 8 hours a day in my room, just singing in
Wow.
the mirror.
Wow. Yeah, that's time well spent. So from there, then, how did you get your start in the music industry? You know, you and I met each other at a time where you were already singing out,
Mhm.
singing professionally.
Yes.
And so where did that start for you? How did you, what was your first sort of insert into the music industry?
So I would say um, when I was about 16, I was in high school. I did a competitive vocalist competition called EXO in high school.
Mhm.
And I didn't go to a high school for performing arts. I think a lot of times artists feel like, well, if I don't get accepted into a high school for performing in visual arts, then that must mean I'm not good enough. But I'm here to tell you that's not the case. Keep trying. So I did that competition and I actually was able to compete against those that were in a performing and visual arts school and I won.
Nice.
So I prepared for it. And from there, I went on to sing. I tried out for a girl group with Matthew Knowles.
Mhm.
So early on, I started singing with a girl group. And from there, I did some background vocalization for Solange. And
Mm.
then from there, I went on to do more things in the music industry, as well as singing locally with bands, corporate, professionally, and I still sing today. So
Nice, nice. So for those of you who don't know, Matthew Knowles, if you didn't catch that little name drop, that's Beyonce's dad, guys. That's, the father of Beyonce and Solange Knowles.
yes.
So, and Matthew Knowles owns a production studio called Music World here in Houston, Texas, and it's one of the premier studios. And you were a part of that. You got a chance to work with him and some of the family members, some of the famous family members,
Absolutely, yeah.
and some of the group members. So that's actually pretty cool. So you got your start getting into, like, you went right from competing in like talent shows and stuff like that, right into, doing it professionally. That's pretty cool. So I'm wondering though, Ashley, you and I have known each other a really long time now, literally over 15 years now we're
Yeah,
talking
it's a long
about. So,
time.
and you and I have worked together on literally hundreds of gigs at this point. What has that experience been like for you, like us working together in the industry? And yeah, just what has that experience been like for you?
Well, it's been great. Terence is amazing. You guys,
Awesome.
if you've never had a chance to have him as an MD and
Mhm.
also instrumentalist, he plays just about everything. But especially as the MD, I
Mhm.
think it's been great. You can
Mhm.
always, as a vocalist, you can always count on Terence to
Mhm.
be there to hit the cue, to sometimes know your lyrics. So he's just, he's
Yeah.
really, really been great to work with.
Yeah.
It makes for a very positive experience.
Yeah, I agree. And working with you has been really great as well. And it's always good working with people who are talented and professional and know what they're doing and have a passion about music. And that brings me to a question about aspiring artists and aspiring singers. So there's a lot of musicians and a lot of singers out there who kind of want to get into this industry and do what we do, make money, do what they love and sing for passion.
Yeah.
What advice would you give like aspiring singers who are trying to get in this industry and want to make a sort of living out of it, or, at least a really good passion out of it? What advice would you have for them?
Well, I definitely would say work on your craft. That
Mm,
is the most important thing that you can do because that is the product that you're presenting to the public. So I would say work on your craft as much as you can. That means putting yourself in situations sometimes that are uncomfortable. So go out there and do some open mics. Put yourself in an audition situation. Even if you don't get the audition, that doesn't matter. What you're doing is you're preparing your body for the moment when opportunity meets destiny. And that opportunity, when that happens, then that's when you can live your dream. So a lot of times I think people feel like, oh, well, I can just cram like an exam or something. Well, music isn't like that. And
right,
especially being a vocalist isn't like that.
right.
You have to continue to train your vocal cords. You have to, just like exercising. If you want to stay in shape, you got to continue to exercise. Same thing with vocalization. You have to continue to work on your skills. You have to continue to use your voice in the proper way and manage your voice. So I would say work on your craft, get out there, put yourself out there, don't be afraid. And just continue to persevere through whatever happens because you're going to get a lot of no's.
Yeah,
But
true.
when that time comes and you get that final yes, then that's the one that matters. So
That's so good advice. Guys, if you didn't catch that, when opportunity meets destiny, did you catch that? Like that's so dope. Like that's something I tell people all the time too. There's a bit of, if we're honest about it, there's a bit of luck involved in this, what
mhm,
we do. Some of us just get lucky, more lucky than others.
right,
But that luck still has to have opportunity and preparedness behind it. You know what
right.
I'm saying? So it has to be, you have to be ready, you got to be prepared for whatever comes your way. So that's really, really, really good info.
Right, because the worst thing that can happen is that the opportunity shows up and you're not
And you're not
prepared.
ready for it. You're right.
So now you have to wait for opportunity to spin the block again.
Right,
And
exactly. Yeah, and that probably won't happen. It probably won't happen. One of the things I learned from Will Smith, and I don't want to drop his name with all of the controversy that's going on with him, but I mean, one thing that he says all the time is if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's about. So that preparedness, and being ready for opportunity, meeting what your destiny is, that's really, really, really solid advice. So then who like are some of your like most influential singers? Like who influence you, like your vocal style, what you do, and who do you look to for like inspiration? What artists out there do you look to for inspiration when you're looking to be inspired? And what have you patterned your sort of vocal style after?
So for me, I have an old soul. People always say that. I have an old soul. It's just something I just can't get over. I can't get around it. So for me, I love those tones
Mm,
or vocalists with tones that are distinct.
mm,
So that would be like an Anita Baker or Gladys Knight, even Whitney Houston, of course. But someone that I used to listen to, my family just loved and adored her was Sade. And I loved and adored Sade because of her presence. It's something that's hard to explain, but she
mm,
has a presence about her and the live instrumentation. I am so big on live instrumentation. I love it.
mm.
It's nothing like that feeling
Yeah,
that live instrumentation gives you.
yeah.
So I would say those are just a few. I also love Tamia.
Dope.
I love a lot of different people, and as you can see, a lot of the people that I named, Tony Braxton, they have
Mhm.
very distinct
Sure.
tones
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
their
and I can say that
voices.
about you too. Yeah, like I can tell because you have a very distinct tone in your singing as well, and that's really good. And you bring up a really important point that I wanted to ask about. You talked about Sade and her presence,
Mhm.
her stage presence, and that's something I talk about all the time too. How important it is to have a presence on stage because what we do is entertain at the
Right,
end of the
right.
day, and we have to be entertaining. So, and that's something that you're really good at. You're a really great entertainer, along with being a dynamic vocalist and all of that kind of stuff. So, in that, how important do you think being entertainment or just the entertainment aspect of being a musician, being a vocalist is?
It is so
Mm,
important to Know who you are. So when we go on stage, a lot of times we become our alter ego or
Mm,
our character
mm,
that we present. And you have to know who that is
mm,
before you even step on stage. You don't have to always I think sometimes people feel like, you look at two totally different singers. You look at Beyonce, and she is a huge dynamic presence, right? She
mm,
is gonna give you all the energy, all of the glam, everything that you can imagine. And then you look at a vocalist like Sade,
mm.
and she's very calming,
Right, right,
vocalist,
right,
but still very impactful,
right.
very much a
Absolutely.
presence. So, you just know who you are when you
Mm,
go on stage, understand the story that you're telling because you are a storyteller.
right.
And, you just deliver it with all the passion and the emotion. So you have to give into your emotions a bit. Of
Mm,
course, stay in control, but you have to give into it so that way you can really make it believe, in order to sell something,
mm.
it has to be authentic.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that brings me to another point. Like with what we're doing as entertainment, it's also important for for vocalists to maintain vocal health
yeah.
and just always have their vocals ready because we talked about that. You got to stay ready. And a lot of these gigs can get a little challenging.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? You could be singing hours and hours on end. So
Mhm.
with that, over the years, what are some things that you found that are good ways to just maintain your vocal health to make sure you're always up to par when you got a gig or something coming up, or even when something just springs up on you? What do you do, vocally to prepare for that, and how do you maintain your vocal health? Are you a musician, artist, or band looking to make some serious passive income and build a huge fan base? Then you should absolutely start a YouTube channel today. And that's because right now, YouTube is the biggest opportunity for bands and musicians to make money and build a huge following around their craft. And this is the reason that the premier YouTube QuickStart course for musicians was created. This course is designed to get you up and running on YouTube very quickly and easily. And the best part is it's completely free, and you can get instant access to it at the link in the description of this video.
Well, for me, I do try to do a regimented vocal lesson. So, it's just like I said, it's like going to the gym. If you want to stay in shape, there's nothing wrong with you taking vocal lessons because it keeps your vocals loose and agile so that they can move effortlessly, right?
Right.
And that's what you want. Another thing that you want to do is you want to stay in shape physically
Mm,
because singing is a workout.
mm,
And if you're singing properly from your diaphragm, it takes a lot of energy.
mm.
You're exerting a lot of effort on that stage when you're singing properly. So that's another thing. Also, something I had to learn as a young vocalist is to stay in control. Stay in control meaning, it's so easy to lose your it- to lose your posture or to lose your it's a word I'm looking for. Like when you work out and you use bad form,
Mm,
it's
mm.
almost like you're really hurting yourself more
Yeah,
than
yeah,
you're
yeah,
helping
yeah. I
yourself.
got you. I got you. Yeah. So maintain your form. Yeah. While you're singing.
Maintaining your
Sure.
form while you're
Yeah.
singing and stay in control.
Mm,
Be conscious of the breaths that you need to take and
mm,
what phrases you need to take
mm,
your breath at. And it can get technical, but that's important. God is going to give you all of the ingredients,
mm.
but it's up to you to bake the cake.
There
You
you
have
go.
to put it together and you have to make it work, right?
Yeah.
So same thing with being a vocalist. Work on different exercises all the time. If you just in your car, start vocalizing. You do your bubbling on your lips, breathing bubbles,
Mm,
breathing exercises. I think just stay in control, stay aware of what you're doing
mm,
because your voice is going to change.
mm,
And when I started out singing, I was a young girl. I didn't
mm,
have kids.
mm.
My voice was higher
Yeah.
and younger and youthful and and as you mature and you get older, our
Mm.
voices change.
Yes. Yes.
Everyone's
Yes.
does.
Absolutely.
So what do? You have to adjust. You have
Mm,
to make the adjustment and
mm.
you have to work with now what you have.
Yeah.
So, you have to understand that there's going to be change and you have to roll with the punches.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's really great advice. And one of the things I hear people say all the time about this kind of stuff when they hear that sort of regimen and what they have to do, the subject comes up of like the types of gigs that they do. Like a lot of people think, well, I only do these type of club, small club gigs where it's not really that important. As long as I show up and I'm okay, it's cool. So that brings me to another question. Like, so what are some of the differences? There's those of us who do like the club gigs, the club style gigs. That's a set of musicians and artists and singers who do that. And then a set of artists and musicians who do more professional work, the corporate style work, the cruise ships and all of that kind of stuff. So between those two things, what have you noticed as a vocalist, like the differences between how you have to prepare for those two things? And, what is the biggest difference between those two outlets for you?
So corporate is going to have a more professional undertone to it, which means you may have to learn some music within a week. You have to prepare for a first dance, or you have to prepare
Right.
for a special selected song that the
Mm.
client is wanting to hear.
Right.
And that's important. Club gigs are more kind of on the fly a lot of times. There's not a lot of rehearsal. So that's another thing. You want to have a lot of material in your arsenal. So when you go out to perform with different bands, if they call a song, you can get through that song, right?
Nice.
And I prefer corporate.
Yeah, of course. Me too. The money is better. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
let's be fair, honest about
I
that.
prefer corporate. And also, it's a little more structured.
Yeah,
Now, granted, the club gig is quick, right? It's faster.
sure.
But it comes with, a lot too. I will say, we have a funny story. One time we were at Sullivan's.
Oh, goodness. Yes.
Was it Sullivan's? No, it was the St. Regis.
St. Regis. Yes. With the hard floor.
With a hard dance
Yes.
floor. Lots of dancers. So this place is a place that's filled with dancers. And, they drink the
lot.
entire night.
A lot.
Yes, the
Yes.
entire night. And so it is not a stage. So if you have to kind of picture it's not a stage. So there's no elevated stage. We're all on the same level on the floor.
Right.
Gentleman comes onto the stage where I am, knocks me down while I'm singing. I mean, it wasn't even something we could fake. Normally, I'll hit the ground and keep rolling, right? Because you have to be like that with music.
Right.
Something happens during live performance, you have to go with it and you have to make it a part of the show. That's a big thing, right? Improvisation. But at this moment, I think everybody was like, are you okay?
Yes. Absolutely.
So that was my little dangerous experience when I was singing the clubs. But I mean, would I do it again? Yes, I would. It's all in fun. I live to see another day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, stuff happens. I mean, people have knocked my equipment over and pushed me off my keyboard stool. I mean, it's crazy. It gets really crazy, like those New Year's Eve gigs.
Yes, it gets wild.
Really, really, really crazy. So you got to be sure that this is something you want to do,
right?
And you got to be careful about it. And you probably need some insurance.
And you have to be a people's person, right?
Yes. Yeah,
right. Because lots of people, they want to know who you are, even outside of just your performance.
Yes.
When they come up to you, they want to have a conversation with you. There's something there. People want to know more about you. Right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And that brings me to something else. Like so a lot of people hear this and a lot of people hear like the entertainment part of it and you got to be prepared and all of that kind of stuff. But a lot of people are also introverts. They don't really like the attention. They don't like to be out there talking to people and all of that kind of stuff. And for some people that's uncomfortable and it brings in things like stage fright. So my question is stage fright something that you have dealt with or you still deal with now? And if so, how do you deal with it? And if not, how do you recommend other vocalists deal with it?
Absolutely. I'm a huge introvert. I will say that. I'm a social introvert. I always say that. I will talk to anybody that talks to me. But on stage, you would never know that, right? I've mastered the character. I've mastered knowing, okay, you know who you are in this lane. And so I drive in that lane with confidence. And that's something that you learn as you do it more often, but you also know that you're prepared. Preparedness allows you to be more confident in everything that you're doing. So I would say for me, okay, early on, I used to get stage fright really, really bad. really bad. And back then I was younger. I think I was still kind of figuring myself out. I still would, yeah, I was still figuring out who I was as an entertainer.
Sure.
So that probably created some stage fright. But over time, like I said, the more I put myself out there, the more that I put myself in that zone, it never really necessarily goes away. But
Mm,
once you get past the first nope, you're good.
sure.
You're once you lift off, then you're off the ground, right?
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of like what I would relate that to is like working out. It's kind of like being comfortable with the pain or the
Right.
soreness that you
Right.
get after workout. It's always going to be feel a little sore when you do
Right.
it, but you get used to it. You get comfortable with it. So yeah,
Exactly.
that's really good advice too. Okay, so that leads me to ask, like, with vocalists and singers, there's always like important qualities and stuff that a lot of, us musicians and vocalists and artists should have
Mhm.
in general to really make it in this industry, to kind of make our way in it. What is one of the most important sort of personality qualities or just qualities overall that you think a singer or musician should have when they're getting into this and when they're trying to, just move forward and move ahead and get further in what we're doing here in the industry?
Well, for me, I believe one of the most important qualities that a musician should have is discipline.
Mm,
Discipline is something that everybody's not born with. And I think it's important for people to really, note that. I work on discipline daily. I do things that I don't want to do.
yeah.
And I do them despite how I feel because it makes me a better human being. And so
Mm,
discipline is something that all musicians should have a discipline to work on your material, to work on your skill and your craft. And then the other thing that you have to have if you're going to stand the test of time is resilience.
mm.
You are going to get knocked down. You're going to have to dust yourself up and get back up again.
Yep.
So, yeah, resilience and discipline are my top 2 for musicians especially.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Especially resilience is something that a lot of us musicians have to have. Even
Mhm.
just instrumentalist musicians, and we get turned down for stuff. Sometimes we get
Yeah,
looked over,
yeah.
and that can be disheartening for a lot of vocalists and singers. I had a singer one time that was, we get into a lot of these situations where somebody may not be able to do a gig or something at the last minute, and then you have to call someone else at the last
Mhm.
minute. Well, there was a situation where I called a vocalist, and that vocalist kind of got mad, was like, "Well, why am I the second choice?" And I was
Mhm.
like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm trying to put you on the gig. Like, we already had
Right,
somebody.
right.
But, so you see how that works. Like, so things like that, and people tend to think like that. So you have
Yeah.
to have a level of resilience in, getting past things like that and understanding like the way things work.
And you saying that brings up a really good point. You have to leave your ego at the door.
Mm,
Check your ego at the door because it's where you will need when you get into character, yes, use that ego when you are into character.
mm,
But when you are working with people, you never ever want to have a reputation of being difficult, of
yes.
being hard to manage, hard to deal with, unprofessional, doing things inappropriately that the client has asked you not to do.
Right.
And some people drinking too much on a gig, that is an absolute no-no. That
Right.
is
Right. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
for sure.
that's a for sure you will not
Yeah.
get called again.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you
Absolutely.
have to know how to conduct yourself even outside of music. And a lot of times musicians get a bad name. We get a bad reputation because people, they abuse things. And I know we're artists, we're free
Mm.
spirited, but you have to know how to conduct yourself in
And that's
certain
where the discipline
environments.
comes in. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, you're absolutely right about that. It's a really good point. It brings me something else. A lot of people talk about. There's been this conversation about musicians being arrogant and what you're talking about, the ego and all of that kind of stuff. And a lot of musicians have this sort of disposition of like, well, why should I, come and try to be humble? Shouldn't I show up as my best self and all of that kind of stuff? And what I try to say to that is that those are two different things.
Right.
Showing up as your best self, you should always do that. But when we're talking about ego and being arrogant, all of that kind of stuff, we're talking about how we relate to each other,
Right.
how you talk to people, how you treat people and stuff like that. And that's where that sort of checking your ego at the door comes in, like what you're saying.
Mhm.
So that's really so good. That is that's like the thing, guys. I'm telling you, like it's a lot of people look at what we do and think it's like
Mhm.
easy and that it's like, all you got to do is just you know how to play an instrument, it's so free and all of this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
There's a lot of these things that go into it, just like you would do in or have to have in any other profession. When you work a professional job,
Right.
you have to have people skills, like you mentioned.
Absolutely.
So it's like those things. So it's really, really, really good.
Yeah. Gotta be professional and understand you are gonna get a lot of praise. I mean, you're
Yes.
good. You're good at what you do, but you know that. So it shouldn't come as a surprise. So, you of course you're grateful, you are thankful for the compliments, but you have to always remember, okay, but I'm still a work in progress
Mm,
because we are students of life. You are always growing. If you stop growing, then guess what? You've hit your expiration,
there you go.
and we are still
Yeah.
growing every day, so it's something to learn in everything and in every experience that you go through. So,
Yeah, it's really well put.
yeah.
So Ash, you've done some recordings, you have a
Mhm.
couple albums out, a couple projects and stuff out like that, a few projects actually.
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of artists and singers are looking to do as well. So
Mhm.
what is your process of like writing and getting your songs to the point that they're ready to be recorded? What's that process like for you?
Well, I take time with the music, and I really think about what I wanna say, what I wanna talk about. I kind of do more of a poetry style. So I might write out a poem. I might take different phrases and I might collectively work out a verse.
Mm.
And then I normally start with the chorus and then I'll work through and get the verses to go along with the chorus. So that's how I work on it. You need to know what format you're going to do. If you're going to have two verses, um, you know, chorus and a bridge, so those are technical things that you need to work out. Know how many bars you need, just stuff like that.
Gotcha. So what do you then that that makes me want to ask. So the differences between like recording in the studio and
Mhm.
singing live, I've heard, a lot of vocalists talk about how different that is.
Oh yeah.
How different is that for you and what's your input on that?
Totally different.
Mm,
So, I grew up singing live so much that I used to actually kind of shy away from going into the studio because it's a more technical approach of singing, right? You can get on stage and you can sing with all of your voice, right? Full voice. But in a studio, you have to be aware that it's not going to come across the same, right?
right.
It's just going to sound bad. And so you have to learn both. You have to learn how to bring it back in but still make it sound passionate in the studio, and then there's a beauty in that too. So I've learned to embrace that beauty, that I don't have to do do all of the pushing while I'm in the studio because the mic is going to be my assistant,
Right.
right?
That's a
And
good
I
way to
don't
put
have
it. Yeah.
instruments coming behind me.
Sure,
So
sure. That makes
yeah.
sense. That makes a lot of sense. You have to have a lot of control because a studio mic will tell off on you.
Yeah.
If you're in a vocal booth singing and all you have is, no ambiance around you versus when you're on stage, you have the ambiance of the room that can kind of hide,
Mhm.
some of the imperfections and stuff like that. But when you get on the mic, it's something completely different. And, we
Right.
get on the mic in the studio.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's really good advice for vocalists out there. Now, another question I wanted to ask you is a question that I get all the time from a lot of the ladies that follow the podcast and follow the channel is about dress and attire for gigs.
Okay.
So a lot of them wonder, what is proper to wear for gigs for ladies, be it a cocktail gig or a professional gig or even a club style gig.
Mhm.
Are there like certain outfits, certain types of outfits that you would recommend that, maybe three or four different types of outfits that you would recommend that the ladies would have to, for a professional gig and a club gig, cocktail gig, stuff like
Right,
that?
right. Yeah, you definitely wanna have a couple of different, options to choose from. I would say, you always when it's a corporate gig, you want to be sexy, but you don't wanna be unprofessional, right? You wanna still remain professional. You don't wanna make anybody uncomfortable. Sometimes it may be a wedding or something like that, or it might be, a more mature crowd, so more conservative. You do not want to offend anybody with what you're wearing. So I would say having something black always is important. Something that's, that comes to a nice length. Like I say, you can be sexy because, hello, if that's your character, then that's your character.
Mm.
Now, that's not everyone's character, and
Sure.
that's okay too.
Sure.
Um, so just making sure you have black, of course. I would say a nice cocktail or evening gown would be good as well. And having a nice pants, I would say jumpsuit. I like to wear pants because I like to dance. And sometimes when you have on dresses, you can't move as freely. So
Mm.
when I have on a jumpsuit, or some people call them cat suits, but I call them a jumpsuit,
Mhm.
I would say I can dance more. I can be free. I don't have to
Sure.
worry because you're on a stage and people are looking up at you. So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's really, really good. That's something, when people ask me, my responses are always, I can probably give you an idea, but I'm not a lady and I don't want to sound, like I'm mansplaining what women
Hmm.
women should wear or something like that. So
Right.
I think it's really good coming from you, and then you being there, having that experience and knowing not only what's, a little bit more professional, but
Right.
what's appropriate in certain environments, and what you should wear and all of the kind of stuff. And it's the same thing for us guys, it, the all black is the thing to have. You got to have a black suit. You got to have a black tie, white shirt, stuff like that. That's the professional thing to wear. Even in the more relaxed settings, you still need to be what I would call, and this is something that I was taught when I was coming up, that you should always sort of outdress the crowd.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just be a little bit more professional looking than the crowd. So if
Yeah.
it's jeans and t-shirts for everybody else, maybe it's like khakis and a polo shirt for the band,
Right. Right.
so you kind of overdressing them a little bit.
I
So
agree.
yeah, that's really good. That's really good advice for the ladies. So ladies, take that.
Yeah. You don't want to, you don't want to come in and realize, oh, I don't look, my best. You want to look your
Yeah,
best.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
on stage and people come to see you.
Mm.
So you have to look at it like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So one more question I have for you. I wanted to ask, like, what are you working on now? Like, what are your plans for the future for like your music career? What you're recording in the studio? You working on any more original stuff? Looking to record some more, do some more gigging? What does that look like for you?
I am. So I'm looking to do another project.
Mm.
It has been a little bit of time since I last did my last project. So I am ready to get back in the studio, do more writing, and really speak from my heart. I've gone through more.
Mm.
I'm older a little bit. I'm still young, but I'm a little older. I've lived a little life.
Yeah,
Okay. So I can really, speak to my lyrics more, speak to
mm,
women through my lyrics
sure.
with things I've gone through. And yeah, I would love to do that. Love to get up and do some lot more live music. Just finding the right fit for me is
Mm,
important.
sure.
Because again, if singing is what you love to do and you're passionate about it, you should enjoy it. Never, never, never let it become work.
Mm,
And when it feels like it's weighing down on you or it's burdensome, then that's when you have to reevaluate. You
mm,
just have to say, okay, I
right.
need a moment. And every shoe is not going to fit you. So it's okay sometimes
Mm,
to walk away from certain things that aren't made for you.
mm,
And that's something I had to learn that
mm.
came with maturity.
Yeah,
And
sure.
it's okay.
Yeah.
And but that's what I'm working on. Working on a new project, working on more live entertainment, who knows?
There you go.
I'm sure
There.
we'll be on stage
Of
again
course.
soon.
Of course. Absolutely. Well, so thank you, Ashley, so much for being here. You have dropped so much knowledge on us today. I mean, it's always wonderful sitting and talking to you. And
Thank
it's,
you, Terrence.
again, it's always being great being in the company of other great musicians and artists who, have kind of like minds and stuff like that. So if anybody's looking to find you online, where can people find you?
You can find me on my Instagram page. I am at Ashley, Ashley Marse, Marse music. And you can find my booking information there. All of my contact is there. And, that's where you can catch me.
There it is. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching today's podcast. We'll catch you in the next one, and never stop creating music and always continue to improve your craft. See you next time.